Hi, welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. We are continuing to talk about the topic embracing the storm through recovery. And, in recovery and storms, they can come in all shapes and sizes, unique to us. I have a new, I put two, but it really is one new guest. But we'll just say two. He's like two people. I'm just joking. But we have a new guest named Erick. I've known him for a while. We have a bit of a history. I remember him. I want us to segue before I bring him in. I want to say this. I remember the most that people knew was that people generally thought I was Filipino, just like him. And I thought it was hilarious. I'm actually Korean, Puerto Rican, those who are watching. But Erick is a good friend. Welcome, Erick. Thank you for joining and being part of being a guest on this podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hey Rob.
I just want
Thanks
to tell
for having me, man.
No problem. I just want to tell those who are listening, before we begin, I always say this because I don't assume anything when it comes to, especially the time we live in. So I'll give a disclaimer. If you are in crisis, please seek appropriate professional help. The crisis hotline in the U.S. is 1-800-273-8255. That's National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. But wherever you are in the world, try to find what resources you do have. A lot of times when we talk about friendships and context and all that, we talk about backgrounds. I remember being a first-generation American, just I think, assuming like Erick. A lot of things are different when you start comparing notes in elementary school of how different your family does it compared to. But it also shapes the view of how you see experiences in your life. Unfortunately, and I find this true, especially how polarizing things are today, that despite the labels and categories and generalizations we like to put on things, loss, pain, grief, shame, sadness are more common feelings and experiences across all cultures and boundaries more easily than values and anything like that. I want you to listen to a quote, and I say both, but I want you and yourself to listen to this quote. And it says this. It says, everyone needs a house to live in, but a supportive family is what builds a home. What comes to mind when you hear this, Erick?
I think that's 100% true. Like you said, coming from a first generation, growing up here, family of immigrants, you have to have that family support behind you if you want to, have like a strong foundation and coming up here in America, because technically you really don't have anybody here but your family. Whereas like if you have like a generation of family members that were here in America, then you have a lot of people to fall back on. But coming here first, you really have to rely on the people that took care of you and raised you here.
And like it's funny because there is definitely a difference between the house and a home. Those times when you've been in the house, I don't care how nice it is. If it doesn't feel like a home, it doesn't feel as nice, And I feel that's subjective. I remember one of my friends, she's a social worker, actually near your neck of the woods. She said she was working with this homeless guy for 20 years, and he asked her what was the hardest thing being homeless in New York City for 20 some years, and she's riddled down all the lists she learned in college, everything we programmed to say. But at the same time, he's like, no, you got it wrong. It's loneliness. That was it. Him being alone was more cumbersome than actually having a place, or dare I say, a house. I'm segueing to 2020, a wonderful year of itself, of uncertainty. That was like, it was on global, like I could never even imagine what 2020 was gonna be like. I started the year proposing to my girlfriend at the time, fiance, on New Year's Day. And then September 13th, and then I just remember she was in Korea. You know that, Erick? She was in Korea teaching. March happens. Busan gets, and she was near there, and I was just like, you need to get back. It was always it was extremely hard when you think of uncertainty and 2020, but it also was. It's been easier for us as humans to convince ourselves to not do things or to do things. Oh, I can't do this because of this. We set boundaries in the wrong ways. We don't set boundaries of how busy we get or how urgent things are in our lives, but we don't set boundaries of like having the time to breathe, having that time to like have that safe place. So what comes to mind when you hear this, the uncertainty and like kind of like the biasness of how we should be slowing down, but we're not, Eric. We're just continue moving forward. Like, oh, I gotta be super busy because that's the only way I'm valuable. What comes to mind, Eric?
I mean, it kind of comes from coming from an immigrant family, right? And especially coming here to America, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of programmed to if I'm not working, then I'm not going to eat.
Yeah,
you kind of have to just keep working and keep at it. And unfortunately for a lot of people during the pandemic, it's especially if you have kids, there really isn't time to have that downtime to relax and whatnot. And the privilege of being first generations coming here is that we did have that when we were in college. We did have that when we first came out and was to join the workforce and try to do this and try to do that. But then the pandemic was kind of like a kick in the face and to say, all right, everybody stay home. We all have to figure this out together. And unfortunately, because we all have to stay home, that doesn't really give you that time to like sit by yourself, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you have a big family.
Yeah.
Especially if you're, newly married, especially you.
Yes.
So, it just kind of, you got to find those different times where you could just say, all right, let me just slow down a bit. The world isn't burning for me. I have a job. I'm doing what I can. And, just have that time to decompress.
Yeah. It's, I feel that there's a difference between, good work ethic, wanting to produce something that's, try to do the best job you can and then learning from it and growing from it. There's a difference from that. And also the difference between, I've seen families, they're so busy. They relied on being so busy for so long. Now they're stuck at home and like, they don't like each other. They literally don't. And it's funny because we get so busy. We have so many distractions. But when we're actually faced with the reality that, hey, I'm stuck at home and this is what the reality is. And some people are stuck at home, working from home, and it doesn't seem like it's going to change for some because of like all these kind of. So I find that, unfortunately, we put boundaries, I find, in like not the healthy ways. We could say, I'm not going to connect because, COVID, which makes no sense. But at the same time, I'm not going to put boundaries like it's okay to sit here and breathe and rest and give myself time to process. It's very telling, like I said earlier, and I'm just going to go back to it. It's just this portion right here. Loss, pain, grief, shame, and sadness are more common feelings. I go to a group, I do a support group, and those feelings are usually easy to relate to. And that's why we always say we don't look at anyone's problems as less than our own. It's not that it's hard because we, in our own little bubbles of our introspective, like my problem's the worst. You don't know what you're talking about. But there's no healing when you're only concentrating on what you don't have. And I feel that that's very telling of where we are today when it comes to this polarizing global pandemic and how we kind of justify putting boundaries where really it's just fear. A lot of times stems from fear. I know I kind of segued a place that, but I want to kind of lament on this one thought, and I want to get your thoughts on this. This is what helped me. I am a peer myself. I struggled with mental illness for quite some time, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, but however, there's one mindset that method I use that has been helpful. It's called the 2 bucket. I have 2 buckets. All right, it sounds funny, but one of the buckets are problems in the storm that we're talking about in life that I can't control. Like initially, when I first met you, Eric, I was struggling, like really with a lot of my symptoms that I was dealing with at the time. And some of the ways I I dealt with them were positive, some of them were negative, but it was a process. A lot of times in life, what I see in recovery is that families, unfortunately, even though they're trying to be supportive, they don't allow the person to breathe or go through the emotions because they're so scared that they're going to get worse. And for me, that was counterintuitive. It made me feel less capable of being someone afterwards. But then there's a bucket that I feel is problematic that people may be putting boundaries on. I've seen myself, even myself, convincing myself that things that I may be able to improve on, I put a lot of blocks. Well, I have all this stuff. I'm super busy. I don't like the word busy sometimes because really when I say busy, Eric, sometimes I admit it. The reason I say is because I don't want to answer 50 questions. Let's just be honest. I don't want to answer 50 questions about how my day was because people honestly don't want to know. They just say it loosely and they don't want to listen. And I'm saying,
hey, how are you? It's just to hear you say the same thing, and then that's it.
It's just social etiquette, and I feel like at times it's nice just out on the surface, but a lot of things that mean a lot in life are not on the surface. And sometimes I think the biggest struggle for me is not someone who's in pain or maybe I don't agree with. I personally think we should be around people we don't agree with more often. It's kind of ridiculous that I'm just gonna group myself with everyone who thinks the same way as I do. I think that sometimes with me, I grew the most through the storm, like we're saying, embracing the storm, when I'm around people that arguably totally disagree with what I'm doing. Tristan, our friend Tristan, he was on here, and one of the things I liked about him was I was friends with him as long as you, right? Yeah. And I remember with him, he never understood because first generation, but he was not even first. He came from Guyana, right? Yeah, and he didn't. He embraced that. He embraced the idea that you had to work, right? And he didn't understand therapy. But when he was on here a couple of months, last month he was up. I remember he said that he began to realize from his own that the value of therapy, and it's different for everyone. And I think each one's storm is different for everyone, just like everyone's method or journey to recovery. The idea is journey. I want to ask you. I know I'm talking, but let me get to that. What with this whole train of thought of buckets, too? Like, what are your thoughts on it? I know it's kind of an illustration, but have you saw in your life, or have you seen in other people close to you, that they kind of concentrate on things that they can't control versus what they could, and then they kind of repeat the cycle. They kind of have this misery loves company. Like, this is continuing to happen to me, and then they're just embrace. They're kind of, it becomes toxic because there's no kind of. It's just like they get used to the conversation. It becomes one of those conversations that happens with not much thought, and then they forget why it even mattered in the beginning. So what's your thoughts on all that?
I mean, like, it's true. A lot of us, I'll point to my mother. Like, she actually had a lot of trouble dealing with after she got COVID. Being at home, being just her and my dad, and like her just trying to figure out like how this is affecting her in an emotional way, not just in a physical way, right? Yeah. And because of the loneliness, because of her not having like a set schedule of going out to work every day, just kind of like chilling, especially, like we talked about before, how the mentality of those that generation that came over is just, we have to keep working or something's going to happen. And having that fear in the back and that anxiety just like caused her to fall into a pretty deep depression, and it caused her to get on pain meds, and not pain meds, but anti-anxiety pills and all that kind of stuff, when all she really needed was therapy. And it comes from that stuff that you can't handle, the stuff, the stress of, the world's going to shit, like what am I gonna do? Like, in all reality, the only thing you can do is take care of yourself, right? And I think that therapy definitely helps you find that path to say, all right, like I need to take that bucket and literally throw it out the window
Yeah.
and just focus on that bucket of the improvements for myself.
Yeah.
And when she started seeing a therapist and seeing that, oh, like I don't have to worry about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What I really need to do is go inside myself and really find myself and be comfortable with the things that I'm doing in my life. And from there, she just found that inner peace, that inner happiness, and she's doing great now. You know,
That's
like she
great.
doesn't have to take medication. She could just chill. She there was like quite a while where she couldn't go out to the store by herself.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like a month ago, she calls me and says, "Oh, I'm here in Lowe's." She's like, "Oh yeah, I drove over here. I'm picking up fertilizer for my bonsai tree." I was like, "All right,
that's awesome."
Cool.
Yeah.
She's like, "I found these orchid flowers," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." She's like, "Yeah, it's really expensive, but I just picked it up because I wanted it." I'm like, "Yeah, you know, do that. Like that's the guilty pleasure you want to do. Just do it. Do what you want, mom." So
Yeah.
I mean, you know, some people say that therapy isn't for them, but I think everybody needs just a little bit of therapy, right? Or you know, a lot of therapy. It just really depends on the person.
Yeah, it depends on the person, and I think a lot of I would say a lot of in life, it's a lot of times we say, "Oh, this is the problem. This is the problem," but it's not about this. It's about that. You know, it's the idea is we put a lot of value in things that continue to change. Like I think introspectively, when I was in relationships before my wife, I would say I'm only valued if this relationship works. And for me, that can be very toxic because it's a team mentality that it is. And like when you have a good family net, it is a team. I may not understand or agree, let's say, with you, Eric, or with Tristan, but at the same time, I value you. Your value doesn't change, whether you make a mistake or not, or whatever happens. That's the beauty of support. Unfortunately, for us, what we've seen with COVID-19 is that we struggle with support in each other. We don't know because a lot of things are kind of streamlined to other. We put value on a lot of things that are just stuff. I think for me, it's not that, you know, I like enjoying to connect with people in different facets, understanding different train of thoughts, but also understanding that it's okay to not be okay. Understanding that in life it is more of a constant journey. I remember this one old, I think this lady in church, she said it to me this way. I kind of converted it this way. She says, people are either blessings or lessons. And I think that goes with anything in life. They're either something that you're very happy to have around. Like a lot of times with friendships, they kind of don't last as long. They kind of run dry. And like obviously friendships do change, but the value and respect, especially the ones that are healthy, that don't have this expectation that you need to stay static in my life or else. Like, because honestly, the one constant in life is change. I want to add this one quote. I don't have it on the screen, but it says, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is a quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. And sometimes that in recovery or during this COVID-19, it is like that. It is one of those things where we just have to, it's a bad day. It didn't go well. This ABC didn't work out for me, but I'm in a safe place. I'm in a home, not a house. I'm around people, and it's not perfect. Like I look back, but one thing that helped me the most was my parents. I can never pay them back, but that's okay. And letting go of that, but understanding that I always will love them. I may not understand or agree with them all the time, but that is the reality of a community of support. It's not about agreeing with each other and being just drones. It's about being there, no matter what. It's being there and standing firm. I want to ask you this question. That's kind of like we're kind of wrapping up this slot, but at the same time, is what has been your experience through this uncertainty? We've been kind of loosely talking about the storm, and the storm a lot of times right now is COVID-19, but it's a lot of things. It could be tensions. You know, obviously there's a lot of polarizing thoughts, and I look back at what I of life, and whenever it's black and white in life, if I say, Eric, you're wrong, you're so wrong, what does that make me? So right? I'm so right. So like it only divides when you go that route. You know, when you say someone is so wrong or I am so right. But with this uncertainty, despite all that, what has your experience been? I know you talked about your mom. How have you been? How did you manage to help cope through this? Because this is unique for many of us. So anything you want to share?
Yeah. Rob, you know me, man. Like, I'm a homebody, dude. Like,
you're a hermit,
I love video games. I love chilling. I love eating, like, at home.
Yeah.
Relaxing.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to get out. Like, I haven't been going to the gym, obviously, because I haven't been going to the gym at all in the past year and a half. And that used to be kind of my getaway, my meditation, the time for myself, you know, being able to get to the next level for, you know, whatever I'm pushing up or whatever I'm pulling down. But like, I've just found that there are things that I could do on a daily basis that could be for myself, like, you know, taking a drive or just, you know, chilling and playing a video game on my computer. Yeah. And I'm sure that you know that a lot. Like, you obviously play a lot.
Yeah, I do. And I do like it because, like, it's immersive, right? And I'm not saying you could tell. And Eric, you know, we're the same. We're close in age, and you could tell with gamers. And I'll say this right now, of I would say toxic gamers and the ones that use it when they need it just to kind of breathe. You know, you could tell the difference. And a lot of times it's kind of parallels. They're usually the ones who they immediately say, oh, this game is aimbot, this game is this, or this game is that. Immediately there's this absolute thinking. They never just be. You said, you know, taking a drive. I love taking a drive now without my GPS. Open road mentality has been gone. Yeah. Like, why do we even have signs if we're just gonna be like wired this destination to that? You know, like it's just gonna tell me. But I remember me and my wife went to just west of Tallahassee. There's caves, all right. And this is how funny this story. I'll share this story and then we'll kind of wrap up. I went there. I was excited. We just, you know, I was like, God, get away. It's just like hermit. I love being a hermit, but you want to get out a little bit. We went there. You know what the funny thing is, Eric? Forgot our whole suitcase. Everything. Right? It's raining a little bit. And the funny thing was like, you know what? Joanne, go out inside the room, get our room set up. I went to Walmart and I Walmarted out. I have a lot of FSU things now, I guess, because we're not. But the thing is this, it was just like we laughed. We literally laughed when we realized we left all our luggage, like our clothes, right? And then the next day we were doing something and we went to the caves and I'm like, she's like, where are we gonna go? I'm like, I don't know. Just gonna drive. And that's what we did. And it was amazing.
That's great, man. Yeah.
Any final thoughts you want to like share with those? I know this for me. This could be as heavy-handed or not, but simply put, I would say this. When math is the best, right? But like the derivative, I look at my emotions like getting down to the derivative of what I'm really feeling, you know, going down to the simplest form you can actually. So a lot of times when I'm really upset or have complex feelings, or especially I go through trauma, maybe I don't feel safe. Maybe I feel sad. Maybe I feel alone. And it can be not related, you know. And triggers are a big thing, and that's one thing that's knowing your coping skills, going through therapy. That's why it's good, because at the very least you go to therapy and you know that certain things trigger you to work on certain coping skills that can help you. Because you know, you go out, maybe you're with your friends, and then someone says something that has nothing related to what happened or an event that happened to you, and it affects you, you know. And I just wanted to share that. But yeah, any final thoughts you want to share with anyone? You know, I think we're just like John Lennon, just want to be happy at 5 years old. But anyway, with that being said, any final thoughts to those listening when it comes to coping, this 2020 uncertainty, the storm, embracing it, as weird as that sounds, but I think things are best gone through. Like, it's best to go through things straight on versus right through it than around it. So, any thoughts you would like to say?
Nah, man. Like, I think that especially around this time, things aren't going to change overnight, right? Like,
No.
we're going to be in this type of environment for quite a while.
Mhm.
Even though that the vaccines are coming out, and things are going to get sort of normal, but in reality, it really isn't going to get back to normal.
No.
We just kind of have to all come together, and as an individual, you just got to try to find those things to get rid of that excess bucket, that you can't control,
Mhm.
and try to like just work on the things that you can work on, and
Mhm.
focus through meditation, focus on what you can to find that inner peace that's within yourself, and just to think through, like you said, to come down to the dealing with for the day. It could be for the day, for the hour, for the minute
Yeah.
that you're trying to like solve something, right? Just
Mhm.
get down to it, and find out what you could do to get that resolved. And just quickly, I want to go back to when we were roommates, right? And this was actually very, very like deeply affected me, because I was in a deep state of depression at that
Yeah.
time too.
Mm.
And I think all three of us were when we were in that room. But
Yeah.
I think having you and Tristan was really kind of kept me at the up and up, kept me at a good level.
Yeah.
It gave me a good balance between like me feeling really bad about my schoolwork, feeling really bad about failing and almost getting kicked out, and then just having you guys to come back to and say, hey, you guys want to go get a drink, or like, hey, you guys just want to have a random Thursday night party and invite like mad people into the room.
Yeah.
Just to have like that outlet, that like happiness, and that really like brought me out and like started pushing me onto like a better mentality. So it comes down to that the foundation, right? Like,
Yeah.
I consider you guys family.
Yeah.
Your family doesn't technically have to be blood. It'd be the people that really, really care for you and really look out for your mental well-being and your physical well-being.
Yeah, I think that room was a safe place. That was what it was.
Yeah.
It was a safe place,
Yeah.
and like arguably, through our introspective, maybe not so healthy, safe ways of doing it, I would say I
mean, our
felt safe.
livers aren't happy about it, but
But I felt safe. That was the
Yeah.
point. There was no agenda behind it. There was a lot of wounds. There was a lot of pain. I was coming there broken
Mhm.
out of the military. So like I didn't know what was next. And one thing I want to say before I'll shift over and tell where they could find Revive Ministries and everything like that. And I know that you starting one, and I'll be putting that in the notes once you got that all cleared up. But what I want to share is, look at the calendar. And I'll tell you this, it's kind of funny. When you look at the calendar, there's a lot of things marked. It's because we forget a lot. What I want to tell those who are listening, 2020, this whole COVID-19 is very hard in very different ways for everyone. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned, a lot of growth, a lot of healing that we didn't think we needed. So I encourage those who are watching to not just say, oh, this COVID-19, this storm. When I say embrace the storm, I say remember. We a lot of times try to forget the lessons that we learned, but I encourage those who are watching to embrace the storm and remembering what we learned. I want to share, thank you, Eric. I want to share with those watching, ReviveMinistriesFL.com is a website. You could go there. I'm going to put, obviously, Erick's new podcast onto the notes so you can check it out. But this is goodbye from Revive Ministries Podcast. I've been holding on to this quote for a bit. It's Martin Luther King. I think it's one of my favorite quotes because it's inspiring in so many different ways. And it says this: if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward.
Mhm.
Till next time.